You know why everybody's so pissed about this big, beautiful bill? Because they got to get up and move their ass off the couch. They've been living off the government for the last God knows how many years.
Yep, you got me. You got me. Because I have been speaking out against this bill, and my wife and I can't lie about it. We have been drawing money from the government since 1999, and her since about 2004. See, because for 23 years I was paid as a soldier and as a GS civilian who retired in 2022 as a GS-12. And now I draw VA disability, and so does my wife, because in 2004 she was thrown from a Humvee and broke her back. And after retirement, I started working in the private sector. I've got a remote job that I work from home. And yes, I have been against this big, beautiful bill. Now you may ask why? Why? I would ask you the same thing. Why do you have the opinion you have that only somebody who draws money from the government because they're lazy is what you were getting at? Why would anybody else be against this bill? And it's simple, because I care about other people. Now, I don't draw any kind of benefits that are going to be affected by this. Will I be affected in some ways? Absolutely, but not nearly as bad as some people. Now, the bill's passed. There's nothing else to really debate because it's done. It's passed. Let's talk about what's going to happen now, and we'll use this for posterity because the changes are not going to be immediate. Here's the timeline. Medicaid cuts will roll out January 1st, 2027, and then over the next couple of years, those reductions will continue. SNAP cuts begin in late 2025 into 2026, and then ramp up over the next couple of years. Medicare, the same thing. They are tied to automatic pay-go and begin in 2027, extending through 2034. So you're not going to see these changes immediately, but when they start to roll out, remember how many times you all were told that this is going to affect so many more people than you think it is. This is not just affecting people that you deem as lazy and don't want to work. That's such a small percentage of people that draw these benefits. This is going to affect so many more people, including people that you know and love. And let's talk about Alabama, because that's where you're from. Did you know Alabama ranks 14th in the nation for these programs? And if you look at the states and what states actually bring in more federal money because of programs like this, they are mostly red states. 7 of the top 10 states on that list are red states, which means these cuts are going to hit red states the hardest. So when these changes start taking place, and when your friends and people you love start losing benefits that they need and they can't get even if they're working, because also keep in mind, 75% of those that are on these benefits, they actually work a full-time job. They just don't make enough to cover. So when that happens, never forget back to 2025 when Democrats tried to help. Too late for that now. I guess this is that FAFO stage, and I don't wish it on anybody, but it's going to happen now, so best of luck.
Say after every tragedy, it is not the time for politics. But if you can't understand that politics are part of everything we do, it's because you're not paying close enough attention. Especially right now, as Donald Trump's cuts left NOAA and NWS down hundreds of scientists, resulting in a 17% reduction in weather balloon launches nationwide. Balloons being the single most important source of scientific data as we predict the weather. And as we look at Trump's even deeper cuts to weather research in 2026, now is absolutely the time to understand what happened in Texas, so we know who exactly is to blame for this. So I spent the morning doing as much research as possible, and I connected with a meteorologist who understood what happened in Texas. He confirmed the opposite. NWS did prioritize balloon launches in that area. There was not a balloon launch missed because they were doing their jobs right. They did predict heavy rain, and they did issue flood warnings hours in advance. And because of their work, over 850 people were successfully evacuated despite this being a middle-of-the-night emergency. Yet because this was in the middle of the night, and because the local officials have not built in any kind of advanced warning system, no sirens and no alarms, we still ended up seeing a loss of life. Yet this is what Republicans are going to do because it's what they always do. They'll scapegoat the scientists at NWS and NOAA, just like they did with FEMA in the Southeast before taking $500 million to use for migrant camps in Florida, and they'll use it as an excuse to justify even deeper cuts to these critical scientific agencies. But in reality, Republicans have no way to spin this, because they're either complaining that NWS alerts were inefficient, only months after obliterating staffing and research at NWS, directly taking blame for this horrific coal-powered natural disaster, where they admit that the dedicated scientists at NWS are doing everything within their power to protect the public from these kinds of disasters despite the abuse they've suffered at the hands of Trump. And because of the work of these scientists, hundreds of lives were spared. But Republicans want to defund and fire them anyway, virtually guaranteeing that tragedies like this increase in frequency and severity indefinitely into the future.
Yeah, y'all know that damn email is propaganda. Social Security just sent out a massive email to all the Social Security recipients, misleading information about being tax exempt. You know, it's funny now that Social Security Administration is sending recipients correspondence, email, and propaganda lies about tax exemption on their Social Security. But when Doge got into the Social Security system, nobody received any correspondence or any notifications then. This is all propaganda. Tell the truth, Trump administration. The tax, it increases the standard deduction for seniors, which can reduce the overall tax income. And it might lower the tax that some retirees pay on Social Security, but it does not change the formula that determines how Social Security benefits are taxed. Very misleading. This administration is purposely, I didn't even know we were in North Korea. I thought Social Security Administration was nonpartisan. Truth has no party. Be well.
Good morning, good evening, and good afternoon, Africans. I'm here in Africa, in the motherland, and I have some sugarcane here with me. No taxes, no tax cut to plant all these. Yeah, probably by now you must have heard that Donald Trump has signed a bill into law. Right? He has proposed, he has signed it. It's now a constitutional law, and everyone has to abide by it who's an American citizen. And this is how it goes. Trump has proposed a tax cut of 1% to all transaction that is leaving the United States of America. Right? 1% tax cut for every transaction outside the United States of America. Now you might ask yourself, how is this going to affect me? You might ask yourself, how is this going to affect me? This is how it's going to affect you. We Africans, some of us have families in the United States of America who send money back home to their loved ones. Right? And again, you might say that 1% is a small amount. But I'm telling you that 1% is really a huge amount, depending on the amount that you are transacting. Percentages are not constant. Percentages are, they increase geometrically, not arithmetically. They increase exponentially, which means their size is affected by the quantity that they are multiplied upon, right? And so I'm looking back and I'm thinking this is going to affect so many. For instance, in Kenya as a country, last year alone, 634 billion Kenya shillings was transacted into Kenya from abroad, right? 634 billion Kenya shillings. To give it more context, $1 is equal to 129 Kenyan shillings. 1 USD, 129 Kenya shillings. That's such a huge amount, right? Such a huge amount. Now, do that math. From this amount that was transacted into Kenya, 634 billion, 300, almost half of it came from the United States of America. So that tells you how much Trump is going to gain. He is going to take a lot and a lot from these people who are immigrants. So, of course, it has garnered a lot of mixed reactions. I want us to listen to these individuals. I shall get back by the end of the video, where we shall also have a deep, critical analysis.
We have some news right now. Donald Trump's Social Security Administration sent out an email to Americans on its listserv saying that it is celebrating the big, beautiful bill because it cuts taxes on Social Security. That's not true. This is what the email looks like. Social Security applauds passage of legislation providing historic tax relief for seniors. It says that the bill ensures that nearly 90% of Social Security beneficiaries will no longer pay federal income taxes on their benefits, providing meaningful and immediate relief to seniors who have spent a lifetime contributing to our nation's economy. That's not fully true, and it needs to be talked about. You cannot cut taxes on Social Security benefits through the reconciliation process, which is the way that they passed this budget bill. There are new deductions for certain seniors who are eligible, but those deductions are capped. There's no provision in the budget bill that cuts taxes on Social Security benefits. And it's pretty misleading for the government to send that email out to seniors across America, many of whom are over the age of 65 years old. Spread the word so more people know and follow along for all the news you need to know about.
Buried inside Trump's great big beautiful bill is a brand new tax for for you sending money to your family and friends abroad. Here's what you're not hearing. Trump's big, beautiful bill gives a 1% tax on all remittances abroad. So every time you send a Western Union, a MoneyGram, whatever it is, a remittance abroad, the U.S. government's now going to take a 1% cut of that. They're already taxing you on your paycheck, and now they're going to doubly tax you for sending money home to help mom, dad, grandma, your kids. The 1%'s going to add up.
I was hearing Texas officials blaming our National Weather Service, which has been hollowed out by our president's budget cuts, for failing to forecast the storm in Texas that caused flooding. But they're only blaming the service, not the felon who really caused it, because I guess it's Texas? You know they voted for that orange piece of crap with a proper warning from a fully functional weather service that was on the cutting edge of forecasting. 27 people would still be alive, including 9 girls at a summer camp that were swept away by floods in areas that were told to expect only a few inches of rain. Here's what those ignorant Texas inbred hillbillies don't know. The felon slashed hundreds of meteorologists from NOAA and the National Weather Service through Doge because billionaires needed another yacht. Experts have been warning for months, hey, don't do this, don't make these cuts because it would lead to inaccurate forecasts and prevent life-saving evacuations. And now it has, because they're experts, not some toothless maggot with a barometer he bought at Bass. And Texas officials are pointing the finger at the bad forecast? Listen here, Haas. It wasn't a glitch at the Weather Service. It was policy from Washington. The felon promised cutting-edge tech and that competence would save lives. But all they cut was human expertise, and lives are now the price, and it's all on his tiny
little orange hands.
FEMA, the same agency the felon wants to abolish, is cleaning up the mess. And the convict? He's dancing on the White House balcony doing his 2-man jerk-off. The only thing he said about it was sad. Yeah. And the Texas rednecks will be okay with that. We were once the gold standard in weather forecasting. Now we're a cautionary tale. Elections have consequences, man. So do budget cuts. And this storm, it didn't come out of nowhere. It came out of
rescues, what have you. Them and the people monitoring or having the resources to monitor what's going on, and the person in the middle who's the meteorologist who is discussing with his people what's occurring, and then alerting the region. I know this was a flash overnight downpour, but lives could have been saved if the people had been informed. Boop, boop, boop. This is not a test. This is an emergency warning. You know, floods occur because everybody's on their phone all times of night. So that did not happen. That's all I'm saying. That did not happen. We did not have the emergency alert people inform the public of what was occurring because the meteorologists in that region had been let go. With the first bullshit things that Donald Trump was giving people incentives to retire from key positions that would what? Save our lives.
Let me get this straight. Canada just hit U.S. tech companies with a brand new 3% tax that's going to be retroactive to 2022. And they did this just weeks before the renegotiation of the U.S.-Mexico-Canada trade deal. That's not bold or clever. It's economic self-sabotage. This so-called digital service tax targets U.S. giants like Amazon, Google, and Meta, costing them an estimated $2 to $3 billion starting next week, June 30th. And Trump, he's done playing nice. He pulled the plug on all trade talks immediately and said Canada will find out what new tariffs are coming within 7 days. Oh, and he's not even taking their calls or answering any of their questions. Meanwhile, their prime minister says they still want to negotiate. But how do you negotiate after pulling a stunt like this? With USMCA and renegotiations right around the corner, Canada may have just put themselves in the economic penalty box. Was this worth it, or did Canada just make a $3 billion mistake? Let me know what you think in the comments. Was this gutsy or just plain dumb?
Well, well, well. It's Saturday. I just woke up. I ain't had no coffee yet. I'm not even sure I should be on here telling you anything without my coffee, without my caffeine, honey. I get mean without my caffeine. But anyway, let's just go ahead and say what I want to say, caffeine or not today. If you voted for that man, this right here is on you, dear. Yes, this is on you if you voted for him. Now, you might be confused as to why I could blame a weather event on that man. Well, let me explain. You voted for that. I know, baby. I know. How could this be on the orange guy? My. You're not good at making connections, are you? Do you remember Doge? You remember all those cuts to the National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration? You remember we were just spending way too much money tracking weather. So not only did we fire all sorts of individuals who worked for the National Oceanic and Atmospheric Agency, we also shut down weather monitoring stations across the USA. We just didn't have enough money for that. Remember, that was just wasteful. It was so very wasteful to be spending all this money to track weather and accurately report on rainfall totals. Remember? That was a waste in your eyes. We needed to take that money and give it to billionaires. Yes, we needed to take that money and give it to people who live in fancy, tall towers. They don't have to worry about flood waters. Yes. Because climate's not real, baby. No, it couldn't possibly be real that over time the cycle of weather would continue to increase and get worse. That rainfall totals would continue to increase and get worse. That's just poppycock, baby. It's really space lasers, right? I'm sure the Democrats had a weather machine, right? Sure had nothing to do with all the cuts to the National Weather Service that tracks accurately storms and then reports them to your local weathermen so that they get a better, accurate report to give to you to let you know, build a fucking ark today. It's going to flood in a big way. But this is what you voted for. Welcome to your Trump tax. You voted to give ICE all the money, billionaires all the money, and screw our National Weather Service, baby. We don't need to track weather. It's just rain. It's just wind. It's just snow. It's just ice. It's just hurricanes. It's just tornadoes. You must be so proud of yourself.
If you care about the Texas floods, you need to hear the news that the New York Times just broke, because we learned yesterday that the National Weather Service's forecasts were not to blame. No weather balloon launches were missed. Forecasts did predict heavy rain, and notifications of flooding were given hours in advance. The issue was that the warnings went out in the middle of the night. Someone has to get the information and act on it. Someone with a job title of, I don't know, how about a warning coordination meteorologist, which is the name of one of the empty positions in the National Weather Service's San Antonio field office. Why is it vacant, you might ask? This position, which, and I quote, is meant to work with local emergency managers to plan for floods, including when and how to warn local residents and help them evacuate. This position has been vacant since April 30th because the person who was in that job took Trump's early retirement package. Now, that's the San Antonio office, which covers a much larger downstream area from where the major flooding occurred. San Angelo office, which covers Kerr County, was missing a senior hydrologist, staff forecaster, and meteorologist in charge. Overall, between the two offices covering the flood area, the job vacancy rate is double what it was when Trump took office. This all points at a much larger issue that Trump and his MAGA cult just do not understand. Yes, it is annoying that we live in a world with frustrating, unpredictable problems. And yes, it is expensive to deal with those frustrating and unpredictable problems. But it's the reality we live in, even if it's a reality that Trump is incapable of facing. Because what we're seeing right now is the consequence of his ignorant, naive fantasy, where he can fix everything faster than anyone else, where he can make everything better than anyone else, and where he can do everything cheaper than anyone else. And the best news is, it only takes 2 weeks. Sorry, America, but that's con man shit. And 75 million Americans played the role of the mark perfectly.
Good afternoon. If you're seeing this video, that means the House passed the bill and it's going to Donald Trump's desk. The genius part of this whole plan is that most of the actions won't actually take effect until after the midterms, so Republicans don't have to run on a crappy campaign. but also a lot of them are going to take effect in 2028 during the new presidential election. So none of the effects of this bill will be able to be refuted during the election, if we still have elections. So I got my trusty iPad out because the only thing more dangerous than Donald Trump is a black woman with an iPad. And I just wanted to let a few people know about Medicaid. Now, I know people don't care about Medicaid. Not something that's really top of mind, but you know who does care about Medicaid? Low-income families, low-income seniors, children, people with disabilities, people in long-term care facilities. Yes. And I just wanted to give you guys a little list of every state that has Medicaid. You may not know it as Medicaid though. And so if I mention your state and the name that is actually Medicaid, it's because it's different than straight Medicaid. Now, there are some states that call their state-ran low-income medical insurance Medicaid, so it matches with the federal government, like Alabama. Alabama calls their state-run medical insurance for lower-income families, lower-income seniors, all of that. They call it Medicaid. But if you're in Alaska, it's called Denali Care. If you're in Arizona, it's called Arizona Healthcare Cost Containment System, the AHCCCS. California, Medi-Cal. Colorado, Health First Colorado. Connecticut, Husky Health. Delaware, Diamond State Health Plan Plus. Florida, Statewide Medicaid Managed Care, SMMC. Hawaii, MediQuest. Illinois, Medical Assistance Program. Indiana, Hoosier HealthWise, Hoosier Health Connect. MED Works, Health Indiana Plan. HIP. Iowa, IA HealthLink. Kansas, CanCare Medical Assistance Program. Louisiana, Bayou Health, or Healthy Louisiana. Maine, Maine Care. Maryland, Medical Assistance. Massachusetts, Mass Health. Michigan, Medical Assistance or MA. Minnesota, Minnesota Care. Mississippi, Mississippi Can. Missouri, MO Health Net. Nebraska, Access Nebraska, or Nebraska Medical Assistance Program. New Hampshire, Medical Assistance or NH Medicaid. New Jersey, NJ Family Care. New Mexico, Centennial Care. North Carolina, Division of Health Benefits. North Dakota, North Dakota Medicaid Expansion Program. Oklahoma, Sooner Care. Oregon, Oregon Health Plan. Pennsylvania, Medical Assistance. Rhode Island, RI Medical Assistance Program. South Carolina, Healthy Connections. Tennessee, TennCare. Texas, Star Plus. Vermont, Green Mountain Care. Virginia, Cardinal Care. Washington, Apple Health. Washington, D.C., Healthy Families. Wisconsin, Forward Health or Badger Care. And what's funny about this is that so many people from rural states did not care about Medicaid. But they might care about Sooner Care. They might care about Cardinal Care. They might care about Equity Plus. When you see these things happen in 2028 and your Meemaw and your Peepaw can't be covered in their long-term care facility and you have to come out of pocket for it, remember July 3rd, 2025, and what happened today and how you voted for this. And the people that didn't vote for this, I'm so sorry. Our country is absolute trash. Garbage, if you will. But here we are. Happy Independence Day. Eve. Okay? All right. You guys.
What is a Trump account and why should you care? A Trump account is an account set up for children born between 2025 and 2029. The government is giving $1,000 to these children as a head start. So why should I care? Well, this money is going to be invested. You can also contribute up to $5,000 adjusted for inflation every year towards that account for your kids. What are the rules of this account? They can withdraw starting at 18 without any penalties if the money goes towards purchasing a home, purchasing a business startup, or college. Withdrawing for any other reasons, they're going to get a 10% penalty and they're going to have to pay income tax on that money. So what if my kids were born before that time? I hear you. My kids were born before that time too. You can set up an account for your kids and you can contribute. Yes, you won't have the $1,000 that the government is giving out to kids, but you can still contribute. You can contribute a little bit. Investing is a time game. The longer your money is in that account, the more it can grow and compound for your kids. So it's essentially a retirement account by the time that you're 1 year old. I think that's pretty cool. Every parent that can should take advantage of it. And if you can't, look into starting an account for your children regardless. Try to invest in it every year. Follow for more.
For the nonpartisan Congressional Budget Office finds that the wealthiest Americans will benefit the most, while the lowest income households could lose critical support. So first, if we look at taxes, this bill extends President Trump's 2017 tax cuts, and then workers who get tips or overtime will get a temporary tax break. But it also puts new caps on the amount that students can borrow in federal loans, and it phases out tax credits for green energy.
And what about health insurance? Because so many people are talking about health benefits being impacted here.
Yeah, and this is absolutely critical. Experts say that this is the biggest rollback in federal health support in history. The bill slashes funding for Medicaid, which is estimated to force 11.8 million Americans off of their health care coverage over the next decade. And health experts, Gio, say that the biggest effect there will mostly come from work requirements, not because people aren't working, but because the added red tape and paperwork could cause people to lose their health care. They also expect people to lose access from local health centers shutting down. It also makes it harder for people to get covered under the Affordable Care Act, and it further cuts funding for food assistance programs, Gio.
All right, so much to work through there. All right, Selena Wang, thank you so much for your...
On our Independence Day, I'm looking into whether or not Americans feel proud to be an American. And as it turns out, Democrats, their percentage who say they're proud to be an American has fallen through the floor.
Well, happy Independence Day, everybody. And really, are we that surprised at his findings here? I mean, after all, as Harry likes to say, the numbers are the numbers.
What are we talking about? Take a look here. Democrats' pride to be an American, extremely or very proud. In 2015, look at this. 4 out of 5 Democrats were extremely or very proud to be an American. That number has plummeted. That number has plummeted to just 36% now in 2025. A low this century has fallen by more than half since 2015 as Donald Trump has become, of course, president once again this year. Now, what is driving that decline? Well, a lot of it has to do with age. What are we talking about? Well, Generation Z Democrats, proud to be an American or not. Of course, Generation Z, born since 1997. Look at this. Only 24% of Generation Z Democrats are extremely or very proud to be an American. That is actually lower, Erica. That is lower than the percentage who say they have little or no pride to be an American at 32%. I just never thought I'd see these numbers based upon where we were a decade ago, but that's exactly where we are. Now, if Democrats have extremely less pride to be an American than they used to, what about Republicans? Well, this is where the trend line gets interesting, because with Republicans, there is no trend line. In fact, take a look here. Republicans' pride to be an American, extremely or very proud. In 2015, it was 90% back when Barack Obama was serving his second term.
All right, let's take a moment and really dwell on this. The fact that when Obama was president, Republicans still had a 90% extremely or very proud to be an American number. 90%, even with a president in office they didn't like. Compared to the Democrats, who dropped more than half when it went from Obama to Trump. Tells you something.
Now in Donald Trump's second term, it's basically the same percentage, 92%. So Republicans still are extremely or very proud to be an American. Democrats, on the other hand, have seen their numbers fall through the floor, led, of course, by the youngest generation. It's history making. It's history making. What are we talking about here? So why don't we look back? We have all the presidents, Republican presidents, going back over the last 35, 36, 37 years. What are we talking about? GOP, who strongly approved 5 months in. Look at this. George H.W. Bush, Bush 41, 46%. Bush 43, 59. You see Trump, the first term, 53. But look at this, 63%. He beats all the other Republicans on the board here. And I was looking even back since Reagan. And get this, Donald Trump beats Ronald Reagan when it comes to the strongly approved 5 months. And, of course, Reagan was coming off that high after that assassination attempt.
Do you even know what you just said?
So the bottom line is Donald Trump is making history with the Republican base. He is more beloved by this Republican base than any Republican base loved any GOP president 5 months in. It is history making.
Great Odin's Raven.
So let's get this straight, guys. For months, meteorologists, experts, and media outlets warned that Donald Trump's budget cuts to the National Weather Service were reckless, and that slashing funding and gutting staff would directly hurt their ability to predict severe storms, that it would put lives in danger. And now, right on cue, a deadly flood hits Texas, and state officials are turning around and blaming the Weather Service for inaccurate forecast. I mean, are you fucking kidding me? This is what happens when you hollow out public safety in the name of politics and cruelty. The NWS isn't some luxury. It's not a partisan tool. It's the reason families get warnings in time. It's the reason people evacuate. It's the reason kids make it home from school before the storm hits. But McDonald Trump's second term has made it crystal clear. If a program protects people and saves lives but doesn't align with his agenda or help his image, he'll gut it, no matter who it hurts. And then, when disaster strikes, just like the experts said it would, they blame the very people that they've undercut. It's scapegoating at its most cowardly. This flood was tragic, but it wasn't just a freak accident of nature, guys. It was a failure of leadership, a predictable consequence of dismantling the very systems designed to keep us safe. If you're more concerned with scoring political points than funding the people who literally track deadly storms for a living, then you are the danger to public safety.
Now, after carefully listening and watching at these videos, of course, I have a perspective that I want to share with you. And this is my perspective. The United States of America has become a place that is becoming increasingly more and more difficult for non-whites to thrive in. Yeah. First of all, when Trump came to power in the first term, he erected the Mexican Wall to prevent the Mexicans from entering into the United States of America. Trump believed that the Mexicans were the problem affecting the United States of America. That's what he believed. That was his philosophy. That was his school of thought. But was he right? Was he right to point to a particular group of people? You are the problem. I don't think he was right. Because even without the Mexicans, the US is the biggest perpetrator to the whole of humanity. Is there any country that has a civil war that USA was not involved? Kindly share in the comment section. I'm really waiting to hear that which I have not heard before. So, he went ahead with the deportation. He went ahead with the farmers. He went ahead with the tariffs. You see, sometimes, and I say this meaning, sometimes the pursuit of success can be a catalyst to failure. You can chase success very fast, very far, and very hard, only to realize that you've been accelerating your failure. And listen to me carefully, right? Listen to me carefully. These tax cuts were not meant to enrich the US government. These tax cuts were meant to discourage people from moving into the United States of America. Because I know, personally I know, I have spoken to Black Americans. Quite a number of them, they lived in America. They lived there. And they have something to say about it. What they said is this: the economy is not really good. The economy of the US is not conducive for growth. The economy of the USA is not acceptable to so many people who are non-white. The only people who are living a better life are the millionaires and the white people. By saying white, majority of the whites, right? I'm looking back right now and I am seeing a group of people, a humanity, that Trump is trying to block their livelihood by passing these laws. But I guarantee you, it's going to bring more harm than benefit in the end. Yes. Share with me your thoughts. Let me know what you think. I'm really eager to hear from you. We shall talk by the end of the video on the comment section.